Me,
What do you think, Angel?
it was um it was pretty interesting. I was stuck on there for like a pretty good while. I watched all of it.
It
Yeah,
was a lot of
yeah,
talk. Like Trump would not let Joe Biden talk at all.
yeah, definitely. What do you think of that?
I mean, I feel like he should have respected him, because when Trump would talk, Biden wouldn't even say anything. Like he would let him speak because he agreed to the 2 minutes, like having 2 minutes to speak within each other. And yeah, it was just, I feel like it was bad hearing like Trump, bash him like a lot. Like he would like just talk on top of him. And I feel like he should have just gave him his time. So yeah, I think it was bad.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. A lot of things to unpack there. So definitely, that's one thing. Prior to the start of the debates, each side, their campaign party, they decide that each each person, each candidate will get 2 minutes to speak. Clearly, Trump wasn't respecting that, and you see like the frustration on Biden and the moderator, Chris Wallace, as it went on. Um, yeah, so he was using like a technique, I guess it was, which is kind of scary that that his base, I mean, Trump's followers would respond well to that, but it was a tactic of bullying, right? He would just kind of cut him off. He would chime in, and it repeatedly. It was like Chris Wallace is like a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, trying to handle like a bunch of kids yelling. It was a madness. I mean, there's seconds where I stopped, I would laugh and just like, what is happening right now? Um, yeah, so someone commented on in the comments, he called him clown, a liar, and a racist. I'm glad he stood up for himself and said that. I feel like if you watch it closely and if you go back to like 2016, you kind of see um, you see Biden kind of fell for some of Trump's traps. He got him to engage in some of the like Trump's like a bully. Like his technique is to constantly throw jabs at Biden to respond to kind of throw him off his game. Oh yes. Marlene mentioned like one of the jaw dropping moments, this white supremacy comments. So what if you missed it? One of the biggest moments is so there's white obviously there's like groups of white supremacy groups in the U.S. FBI the FBI has said that's a national domestic terrorist groups. People in his administration have said that. So Chris Wallace, the moderator, asked them, "Will you?" This is the easiest question too. Ask them, "Will you on this stage right now denounce? Will you denounce white supremacists and the Proud Boys? Proud Boys is a sect of white supremacist young men. And he said, I want you to stand back and stand by, which is a scary comment because stand by means to wait until something you're ready to attack, right? They use the phrase stand by in the military. You stand by, you guys, you are ready to engage. So scary, scary. Right after he said that, he said, someone needs to do something about the far left and Antifa. That's a scary comment. Let's see, what are people saying in the comments? Uh, the the girls were fighting. What girls, Marlene? Oh,
TikTok.
the what?
The TikTok, like they say, what's the tea? The girls are fighting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So if you notice, one of the tactics, and this is actually goes back to one of our lessons, which is kind of cool. One thing that Trump does and does repeatedly is two things. Oh, actually, we'll go back. Let me go through our logical fallacies, and I'll let you think what Trump uses. So last week, before we headed out, I know we spent some time and we went a little overtime too. So we went over this thing called logical fallacies, and I'm actually going to open up the quiz another day. I know because someone messaged me and said as you were going through it, it wouldn't allow you. So I'm gonna let open it for the end of today as well, just in case someone could get to it. So it's that. All right, so last week we went over this idea of logical fallacies, and we're looking at people's arguments and to see what type of arguments they're making. The ones we went over are syllogism, and that's the one where you make assumption about things because of a smaller sample size, right? So for example, the math is if A equals B and B equals C, then A has to equal C. Like that's a math transitive property, but that doesn't work as an argument. So for example, if I say the table is black, birds are black, then all tables are birds, right? It's a illogical statement. And so another one, we're doing ad hominem, where instead of attacking the person, instead of attacking the argument, you attack the person. So instead of saying, your ideas for economic change it won't be effective, you're saying, your hair is stupid, or you're not smart, right? So instead of saying something like that, you attack someone's personal identity. False dichotomy is when you create that there's only two options, right? You saying that people are either present them two options. So for example, you say we should either give more money to the military or accept more terrorist attacks, right? Those aren't the only two options, but in this type of argument, you give those two options and you usually make your option good and the second option something that's horrible. Scare tactics is when you say something to scare the audience to believe you. Post hoc is the belief that we assume something just because A came before B, we could say it's a cause and effect. So we looked at an example that day of Hillary Clinton. Trump made an ad against her back in 2016, saying that just because she was in office for 25 years and there's no change, that she was the cause of no change. Slippery slope, if you remember, is when we watch that commercial from like DirecTV where we say that one small thing causes a series of other things. So let's say if you smoke a joint right now, that will slowly, eventually, you'll do harder drugs. You eventually start to do heroin. You do cocaine. You will eventually go to jail. You go to prison. And then you're gonna die. And that's from smoking one joint, right? So regardless of how you feel, that's called a slippery slope. When we assume that the start of one thing will slowly, like a slip, like falling when you can't get your balance. You're slowly fall until you hit this dead end. Red herring is when you have an argument and you ask someone a question, and then they deflect. They go to a different topic. They switch to something else. Thank you, Velka. Yeah, you're adding something back in. Hasty generalization is when we make stereotypes about people. So based on a broad group. So this is kind of the opposite of syllogism in a sense. Where syllogism, we make from a small sample size, we make an assumption about a larger group. But this is a reverse. So for example, I'm Chinese. A lot of Chinese people like Tai Chi. Tai Chi is like the spiritual like movements and stuff. Mr. Tom must like Tai Chi since he's Chinese, right? So that is not true, but that is a stereotype. That's a generalization that we use based on someone's background. Next one is bandwagon. When you make an assumption, when you tell people to do something because everyone else is doing it. There's the old saying, if everyone jumps off the bridge, will you jump off the bridge, right? One of those things, or peer pressure in a sense. Or we say that 100 million people are buying the iPhones, you should buy the iPhone. And then the last one, loaded question. When you ask a question, that is there isn't a right answer to. Okay, so those are the ones we learned last week. If you watched the debates yesterday, and it's okay if you did it, what do you think? What did you see in the debates from our list of logical fallacies? And if you saw one of them, type it on in the chat box. If you happen to see any of these things, type it on in the chat box. All right, give you like a minute. And it's okay if you haven't seen it. One of our feature times, we're gonna look at debate number 3, but that's after we're finished with this essay stuff. Yeah, Julio, I know it removed you twice for some reason. Let me see if Stephanie was able to get on. All right, so looking at this, we have a lot of scare tactics, ad hominem loaded question. All right, let me see. Yamlex, what did you see that was ad hominem?
You would consistently attack him, like to avoid like the conversation of what they were actually supposed to talk about. So you would like constantly bash him and tell him like, oh, you're not good. You think you could do better than me. Look at you. You've been on this for like 47 years and you haven't done anything. So what makes you think you can rule this country? Stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of attack on him. He actually, a lot of time when it's a larger debate, what he would do is attack. There's a lot of controversy right now over Biden's son because he has businesses that are in Russia, and Russia is not on the best terms with the U.S. right now, to say lightly. So even though he brought it to like a larger issue, he would say, well, how about your son? How about your son? Right? If you watch it consistently, he tries to bring it back to the same talking points. Yeah, let's see. You said scare tactics. What did you see that was scare tactics?
I see scare tactics when he's like trying to scare the audience into thinking that he will run the country way better than Biden. And he also did this with Hillary Clinton, but like scaring them into like thinking that Biden's not going to know what to do, and then they're going to end up as well like a horrible country, and he's doing so much better. So yeah, you need to vote for him instead of Biden. But
yeah, definitely. He definitely tried to say that Biden wouldn't know what to do. He was trying to scare the public. Marlene, you said there's a red herring. What did you see that?
It's connected to what Jamilek said. Like when they would ask him a question, like he would just attack Biden and like go around the question instead of answering it.
Yeah, definitely. So there's one major example. If you saw yesterday, and honestly, I'm not gonna spend too long just because I know not everyone did see it, but there's this one moment. Well, actually, not one. I take that back. There's almost most of the moments. So the way debates work is the moderator proposes the topic, and then each side gets 2 minutes to respond, and then there's an open forum section where they get to respond to each other. For multiple occasions, and there's one particular one that I do remember is during the situation of race. He says, race in America. He asked Biden, what's your thoughts about race in America? And Biden answers. And then Trump brings the conversation to the idea of law and order, that we need to support the cops and we need to give them more funding and stuff like that. That is a red herring because the topic is on race in America. He asked about Black Lives Matter and George Floyd in particular. The moderator said that. But he was able to switch the conversation to being about supporting the police officers and supporting the police unions. Think about that. He threw the conversation in a completely different direction. That is a red herring when you ignore the question and you completely go in a different direction. All right, last one. Brianna Andrade, you said loaded question. Why do you think that?
So before the debate, because like I looked into like some background information, Trump asked Biden to take a drug test, and I felt like that was kind of a loaded question because like he basically has no choice. If he doesn't take the drug test, then that just shows that he probably did do drugs. Like he's admitting guilt, like he doesn't want to take it because there's like a chance that it could come out, I think, positive, which is like that he does do drugs. So I think that was a loaded question because like he was kind of like pressuring him to take the test, and if he doesn't, then that just shows that he admits guilt.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's part of it. There's a lot of loaded questions you ask him. We go to even scare. So it's a scare tactics post hoc. Someone mentioned it where Trump repeatedly said, like, you know, you were a senator for 47 years. Why didn't you change anything? Why weren't there changes? That's putting all the blame and responsibility on Joe Biden, saying because he was there before and there's still corruption, that's Biden caused the corruption. Yeah, there's lots of these things happening. We'll look for them next time. But
I had a question. So
go ahead.
There was this section where Joe Biden said, like, they kept asking him this question, which was, will you support the filibuster? And he kept like avoiding it, like, and they always ask him this, and he never answers it. So is that a red herring?
Can we say that one more time?
They asked him, will you support the filibuster? And all the times they ask him, he never like responds to it. He always avoids it. So is that like red herring or?
Kind of, yeah, kind of in a sense. He's trying to trap him with what he's trying to say. Yeah, definitely. Those are all good. If you don't, even if you're not like into politics, that was such. I guess it was entertaining, but when you think about the end, you're like, oh, this is our government, and you're like, okay, that's kind of scary. But it is entertaining in a sense if you want to see two old people argue and not let anyone talk. Yeah, it was crazy. So let's go to today. We are still almost at the end of Unit 1. Let me explain. So if you missed class last week, I introduced our assignments. So I didn't add any new assignments from last week. The only thing you guys really needed to do was a quiz, and open it up again if you want to take it, if you haven't taken it yet for today. And it really is all about the logical fallacies, right? There are hundreds of them, and those are just some of them that we looked at, I think, that are most consistent and constant in people's arguments. And if you even looked at the debate, you saw how often those things popped up. But the assignment we're working on, and it actually has a very, it's tied in. So for writing assignment, you will analyze and critically respond to a cinematic documentary that we will view outside of class. I know some people message me saying that they don't have access to Netflix. Let me work on it. I might have some other means, but if anyone has any other suggestions for how someone could watch it, that would be great. But we're watching The Social Dilemma, right? So if you watched it, you understand that it is tying in a lot of several things at once. But the key thing is tying in how social media is tying into this political landscape we're in, right? I don't want to give you my perspective of what the purpose is, because I want you guys to decide that later. But the kind of questions we're looking at is, who is the primary audience for a documentary? What is the purpose? What is the occasion? Where in the film do you find examples? How did they present both sides? What is the primary motive of appeals? You're evaluating the argument. But in a sense, the most important questions that you need to answer, and because it's a rhetorical analysis, is in a sense the purpose. And but we're also looking at the rhetoric. So all these questions are supposed to help you. What is the rhetoric? What are they doing at? Same thing you did with the Greta Thunberg and the way they did the Cesar Chavez essay. We're looking at their argument and how they're making their argument to their audience. So what is the argument, right? For today, week 7, we have 2 things. Please go to this section right here. This is like an old Padlet, but we're going to add to it. I renamed it to Documentary Analysis Essay. We're gonna do two things. We're gonna use this link right here. So if you want to open that up for later, you can. Yeah, open that up for later. And then open up this Padlet right here. I've had some trouble with my other classes where people weren't able to comment, but hopefully it works right now. All right, so what we're gonna do is two parts. On this Padlet, I want you guys to ask me any questions you have about the paper. Like, so anything that's you want to know more about, and I'll go through and answer. So, so any questions about, from structure to what you need to do or anything, take the time right now over the next like 3 minutes. Hopefully you can add a question and add a question about like something you have regarding the essay. I'll give you the next few minutes and see if you can add it. So any questions you have, this is like an open forum for us to kind of share. All right, another minute, so please write a question down. Let's see. Okay, so as you're writing that, I'm gonna go through and answer as many as I could. Uh, I'm gonna send you guys and everyone to breakout rooms. So inside your breakout rooms, what you're gonna do is select this document right here and get to here. I wonder if I create rooms. Okay, cool. Inside these breakout rooms, we're going to use this document, and different groups are going to use this section. Let me just, I'm going to put up one member of the group so you guys know which room you're in. So breakout room 1, there's Amy. So if you're in, we have Amy in your group, that's going to be group 2. If you are in this one, you're going to have Julio in there. I'm actually, if I put your name, yeah, that's how you know that's you in your group. So this person's group has Adrian C in it. Group 4 has, let's say it has Rihanna, Andrade, this one, Yamalex. Group 6 has Lena. Group 7, let's put Denise in there. Okay, so we have different groups. There's 7 groups in total. In your groups, I'm gonna give you, actually make sure I put enough time. Let's say 17 minutes. And hopefully this gives you a chance, if you haven't watched the documentary yet, hopefully someone in your group has, so at least you guys can talk it out to get some ideas. This is a shared document for us, so we can all kind of get some ideas, right? So actually, let me, okay. So on this document, I think most people are joining on. So when you guys go to your breakout rooms, you're going to only use the box for your group. So for example, in breakout room 1, you're going to, if you have Amy C in there, that means your breakout 1, which is going to be Kimberly, Fernanda, Nayeli, Marlene, and Betsada. So in that group, what you're going to do is think about what are the possible purpose or argument. What is the documentary trying to say about anything? So what are they arguing for, right? Remember, all rhetoric is the use of persuasion. So what do you think the documentary The Social Dilemma, and hopefully one person at least seen it, is trying to make? Everyone could type, or just choose one person to type. Really is up to you how you guys want to run your room. So in this box, just do like a bullet points or whatever, and write down what do you think is the argument. And you could have like multiple, you guys could list like a bunch of different arguments. And what I want you to do is afterwards, what is evidence for the arguments? So what do they say? What do they show? What are their examples, right? And our goal is just trying to use this as a brainstorming technique for everyone. We're going to think of the arguments. We're going to think of what evidence are they using for those arguments. Any questions before we go into our breakout rooms? So we're good? All right then, so I assume so. All right, so you're gonna go to these breakout rooms, and the doc is showing up. I see most people are in the doc, so if you don't see it, I know it's not popping up right here because it's acting kind of dumb. Click on the link, and if you click on the link, you should have access to what's happening here. If it doesn't show up, then you might need to click on this button. If not, if you're having trouble with it, if your name is selected, you maybe share your screen and then everyone can see on it, and you guys could either mutually talk, or you could all type at the same time, depending on how you guys want to run it. All right, so once you guys get in there, please introduce yourselves. It might make things easier. Let me actually make sure the room sizes are. This room's a little too big. Let me fix one size. One group has 4, while another group has like 6. All right, cool. I'll see everyone. How much time do we have? You guys are going to have 17 minutes. So I'll call you guys back at the end of, and it's enough time for you guys to really discuss it and add evidence. Oh, Yoretzi, you just joined us. Yoretzi, you're gonna go into a breakout room right now. Hopefully they explain to you what's gonna happen. You have a group leader in there. All right, see everyone in 17 minutes. Just make things easier. I'm just gonna choose whoever I randomly selected as the group leader. Amy, would you mind telling us about what you guys thought the purpose of the film was?
The purpose was mainly to I forgot the word, to I guess advise or inform the people that how social media was created to, like, as they said, manipulate a user.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought in doctors and different people who worked in different places that run social media platforms, and they described how it was meant to sort of addict people to enter it in more.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay, Julio, what did your group think?
Our group thought that the purpose was that these former social media employees wanted to enlighten us on the dangers of social media, because it's just a dark system of collecting data and selling us to ad companies as if we were products. And the evidence is in the documentary. They had like a skit version of a family, and the eldest son was being monitored, like even seconds he spent on a post, and the youngest daughter developed body dysmorphia because of some of the filters. And there were other things like Google employees saying that they wanted to change it to be less addicting, but they were shut down. So that just proves that they want us to be addicted to it, so we spend more time and buy more of their products.
Cool. All right, let's go group 3. Adrian, what did you guys talk about?
We just mainly talked about a bit on whether just many of the harmful effects that social media can possibly bring up, such as mental illness and misinformation, which was clearly stated by the documentary, either through the narrative or through statistics. And we also discussed whether the purpose was informative in the beginning and later on persuasive.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to Brianna. Group 4.
Jade is going to talk for the group.
Okay.
I will actually be speaking for the group.
All right.
So we talked about how social media, how the speakers were speaking against how social media is addictive and how these corporations use psychological tactics to keep people engaged and how they're selling information so they could get more money through ad revenue.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. Let's go group 5. Yamlex.
So we talked about technically the same thing that others said. The purpose of this documentary was to educate us on the bad outcomes that social media is bringing to us. And we talked about how they're just roping people into the matrix, which is like a manipulation. How Julio stated that they included a skit of a family in which 2 out of the 3 kids were highly addicted to their phones. Like they couldn't even eat in the table without using their phones. So that was terrible. And then they talked about how the little girl, she was like barely like 10 or 12, I don't know. And she had the dysphoria. Like she would constantly be like self-conscious, like if she was pretty or not. She would be so worried about what other people would be commenting. And then they also talked about how our generation is more depressed and more fragile, and how all the things these companies are doing is just to make money. So they include ads. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen it on Instagram nowadays. Because of the elections, they included like, oh, vote here, like don't forget to vote. They do that so they can be winning money. So off of us voting off of their platforms, they're winning money off of that. So every ad we see, and if we click on it, they're winning money for us off of us. So yeah, everything nowadays is just off of money. So that really sucks. That's what we talked about mainly.
Cool. Awesome. Let's go to group 6. Lena.
So our group had talked about it was to inform parents and kids like the dangers of social media, how social media like works, how easily manipulated we can be, and an argument we came up with was like, in a way, we felt like it was to help us to understand that we should create policies to combat the algorithm, and it's also to exploit the platforms of their greed. And the evidence we have is the suicide rates, how they went up from between 2010. The documentary explains information like what we put online and how that's being tracked. They use persuasive methods to get us to click. They use ad revenue, and there's a quote that had said something about only like illegal drugs and online platforms call us users. And then they also use like conspiracy theories that can influence people, and they use propaganda that can be used regarding like political information. And yeah, that was it.
Cool. Perfect. All right. Group 7, Denise.
So we saw that the purpose for this documentary was to inform and bring awareness to the dangers of social media, and that social media employees were bringing to light how it works and the negative effects it has on society. And our evidence was how the algorithm chooses what post will get more views, but it doesn't care if it's misinformation, and it doesn't know how it will affect people, and how notifications and engaging posts get forwarded to us, so we stay on their platform for longer, getting more ads, and they get more money. And also how teen suicide rates have gone up as social media gain popularity.
Cool. All right. So just a quick word of advice. Just because you get stuck in like a specific group doesn't mean you have to write your paper on that. That was just for us to kind of brainstorm. So if you saw like an argument that's like, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you definitely could base your paper off of a different group's thing. That was just for you guys to have a brainstorm session. But yeah, a lot of you guys caught into a lot of the main arguments. There is one thing that they do mention that is interesting. At least there's a lot of like points. You can make an argument that they did all these things. They also talk about like how it's affecting politics in a sense. Have you guys ever heard of the term echo chamber? Possibly. So the idea, they feel that social media in a sense is an echo chamber. And what they mean is that you tend to follow on social media things that you are interested in, right? So for example, if you like Yamlex, if you were on social media, you wouldn't follow a bunch of, well, first off, let me just pick on Yamlex. Yamlex, what are you interested in? What is what are your things that you like?
I like basketball, so I follow a lot of like basketball players. And
Who's your favorite team?
The Lakers.
The Lakers. Which teams that you hate?
I don't hate a team, but
like
yeah, I don't hate a team. I don't know. Just cool. Say whatever team.
Okay, so for example, if your favorite team is Lakers and like you hated like Steph Curry, right? You say I don't like the Warriors. You probably wouldn't follow the Warriors, right? You wouldn't. So the people that you would follow, like if you followed the Lakers, it would stay stuff like LeBron's the best player and stuff like that, right? So that would be your echo chamber. The things that you follow on social media are usually going to repeat the things that you believe is right? It confirms the things you already believe. It's also called confirmation bias. So on the other hand, if people were Steph Curry, if you're not a sports fan, maybe this might be a confusing analogy, but if you were like a different fan, you would follow things of that, and you will follow things that confirm you're right. You will watch only Steph Curry highlights. You're like, wait, no, this guy is the best player. But since Yamlex is a LeBron fan or a Laker fan, she would be like, no, LeBron is the best player. And what they talked about in the social dilemma, and this is one of the many things. A lot of things you guys wrote are completely true. This is the thing that I thought was interesting, is that people are working with a completely different set of facts. So one of the most toxic places that I recently got off is also Facebook. People tend to follow political. Think about how that works in politics. I follow things that kind of support my political views, because I wouldn't want to go and look at like a pro-Trump or pro-gun or pro whatever group on social media. So people are stuck in their social media bubble, right, of information that they're receiving. And that affects the way they see things. So what they talk about in the film in one part of the section is that people are working with a completely different set of facts. It's kind of funny that people that are pro-Biden or pro-Trump believe that the other side, each believe that the other side is ruining the country, right? So it's just like a weird thing. And it goes back to what they said about Google. Depending on where you are in the country, in the world, depending on your search history, the things that you look up on Google is different than someone else. Think about that. So for most of you guys, whatever you search on Google, that becomes like your evidence, your facts, right? But imagine someone in Missouri or Maine or New York, when they're searching up something you believe, like police brutality, right? Imagine for me, if you're searching something up and someone is searching something else up, their top searches, their things that they believe is facts are different. And that kind of skews and affects the way they see things. Just like a minor thing, when I was in China a few years back in, oh man, that must have been like 7 years or 8 years by now. So when I was there, they had a filter in Google. Their citizens are heavily policed, right? So when they look up certain things, it's impossible. So one of the major things that happened in Chinese history is Tiananmen Square. This is an event where the students protested back in 1989. And they protested for their rights. And this is the most iconic picture. Basically, the Chinese government was sent in the military and tanks to go stop these protests. And this individual right here, this individual stood in front of the tanks to block the way, right? Iconic picture. If you were in China and you Googled this one wouldn't pop up. It's because they blocked it. If you Google that and you were in China, you'll see pictures like this, just the picture of the place. So it kind of shows you where you are in the world, how the internet is controlled, how the internet is provided to you. It changes your perspective. So I have cousins that were in China that live there, obviously. They've never ever heard of this resistance, this revolution that went on in 1989. And that's because their set of facts that they're working with is different. And that's controlled by how they see and view the internet. So that's just a minor thing, but all this other things that you want to focus on is perfectly true. So because they touch on so many topics, to touch on the impact of social media on teenagers. You see the way, I think it's a little dramatic, the way that little girl acted. She like broke open like the cookie jar thing. But all of it, anti-corporation, anti-social media, addictiveness of it, definitely true. Sometimes I would close Instagram, and then 2 minutes later, I open it up again. I don't know why, right? It's just like this constant cycle of it. So those are a lot of things you could hit on. This is a shared document, so anything on here you could go back and look at and use. So going back to this though, a lot of you guys asked questions about the essay. I don't know why part of it messed up, because I answered some questions and, oh, there you go. I don't know why they chunked all this stuff together. So I'll go through and ask it. So someone wrote, do we write it how we wrote the Greta Thunberg essay? In a sense, yes, because Greta Thunberg essay was a rhetorical analysis, and this is just longer and requires more elaboration and details. Is it informative or argumentative? It's kind of both of them that helps. It's an analysis. So you aren't arguing if the documentary is good or bad. That really doesn't matter. What you're arguing is, or what you're showing me is, what is the argument of the doc and how are they trying to prove those arguments? What evidence are they providing? And how are they presenting that evidence? What rhetorical strategies are they using? Do we put a works cited page in? For this assignment, since we're all kind of using the same document or the same video, no, we're not going to use a works cited page. Does our thesis just include the argument they're making and what rhetorical or biases they use to defend the argument? Yeah, essentially that's your thesis. You're going to show me what the argument is and how they use, what strategies they use to defend their arguments. Someone asked me what % of the essay is our grade. If you look at our grade book, I think it says timed essays are 20% and written essays are 20%. So we're due about 2 to 3 written essays this year. So at first it's gonna be 20%, but once you do 2 essays, and that roughly means each of the essays like 10%. But initially, this is how it's gonna impact you. Can you give us an example of how we're supposed to cite quotes? At first, I thought about doing timestamps, but ignore that. All I want you to do is how you would do it, like you see like in articles. So for example, you would say something like, Mark Zuckerberg says, and you put a quote in here, right? Or you put in one of the title slides, he uses the quote from, I forgot the person's name, I'm just gonna make the name, Mr. Ta, that says, only 2 industries call their customers users, drug industry, and social media. Right, so just use it like that. For this first time around, just because we're all using the same document, and I don't want to complicate things by using timestamps, we're not going to use that. All right, is essay going to be timed? No, this is you have this whole week to write it. If you watch the film writing it, then you could have already started writing it. How do we phrase it so we don't use words like I, we, us, or can you explain what you mean by writing in third person? So what a lot of kids do early on in their writing, they write stuff like, I think film is trying to prove that social media is addictive. All right, so in this sense, imagine if you wrote that, right? The initial few words, it's unnecessary. What you can say instead is the film is trying to prove that social media is addictive. If you look at these 2 sentences, they mean the exact same thing. But what I did to eliminate the first person pronouns is I just eliminated. Look, if you removed I think, it means this. Oops, I don't know what I did right here. I think I messed that up. The phrases like I think, hopefully I didn't lose it. Where'd it go? Oh, it's gone. Oh, well, it's gone. But you don't need to use words like I think, I believe, I feel. Those are unnecessary. It means the same thing if you said that. In a sense, also, if you were to use a word like we or you, I don't know, instead of using we or you, think of using words like people, individuals, or be specific, say students, teenagers. So for example, if you're saying a sentence like, social media affects how you interact, right, with people. If I were to think about that sentence, the way to really fix that is replace that with a more specific term. So social media affects how teenagers interact with people. So the way to eliminate that is change it to a different word, make it more specific. What other questions are on there? Answered that one already. Someone asked me how many paragraphs do you need? When you start to get used to writing, you realize that 5 paragraphs is just a suggestion. And I would start at 5 paragraphs, and if you could do it all in 5 paragraphs, that's fine. Like, I've done many essays in my life, but if you feel like you need to add another paragraph, that's okay. You might ask, how do you add another paragraph? So for example, if you wanted to analyze more than just 3 rhetorical strategies, you would add another paragraph. Someone asked me, someone asked 5 paragraph essay, what's the minimum word count? Just to get there, we said 1,000 words. Do we put timestamps? No, you don't do that. Here, do our body paragraphs consist of ethos, logos, and pathos? It can, it's not necessary. So what you can do is you could have like a mix match of that. You could have the whole essay be an argument on analyzing the logos, or the whole essay could be arguing 2 ethos and 1 pathos, right? You may be at one, you're like, wait, how can you have different examples? Well, if you remember when you guys were looking at like the Steve Jobs one or any of the other speeches, even though they use pathos throughout, there could be different examples of pathos. And each example does a different thing. Like, it affects you in a different way. There's different emotions that they use. You can argue that inside the documentary, the skit about the family has a different emotion than when they do the skit about the people controlling the social media, like the 3 guys are like physically doing it. There are different feelings, right? So you could have an entire thing about how they're using pathos. I think that's almost it. I don't know why all these comments combined, but what do we put in the works cited page? You don't need a works cited page since we're all using the same thing. Yeah, all right. I think I answered what are specific things we need. So look at the essay instructions, but essentially you need body paragraphs of evidence and explanation. All right, cool. I think that's all. Do we have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we aren't just limited to like using ethos, pathos, logos. We can also use other rhetorical analysis.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to, you could even if you could find a way to fit in, you could use logical fallacies. You could use tone. You could use whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Or if you research the different one, you can. But it's up to you. So the key word is, as we get better, we're gonna find more ways to describe things than just rhetorical appeals. That's just the way I like to start it out, but we like to expand more on your papers. Any other questions? Someone puts, do we have word limits? You don't have a word limits, but you're trying to hit 1,000 words. How do we get the quotes? So you're either going to explain examples, like how you did in here, like you're going to explain a situation, or you just literally just watch the film and write down quotes. But keep track of who said the quote. That's more important. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, please stick around and ask me. If you're good to go, I'll see you next week. Please message me if you have any questions about the essay. And I'll see you guys next week.
Bye, mister. Have a good day.
See ya. Have a good day.
Bye, mister.
See ya.
Mr. Tall, I have a question.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not regarding the essay, but on one of my assignments, you graded it missing.
Oh yeah, I think I saw you. Did you message me about that?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
going. Yeah, I didn't.
There's a possibility because I graded a bunch of stuff, but then I know on Monday there was like an issue on Schoology, so it might have been. I'll go back and fix it.
Yeah, because I checked and it shows as suggesting, which means I submitted it. So and it's still there. I can still see it. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll go back. Just send me a message to remind me.
Okay. Do you want me to like send you the name of it as well?
Yeah,
So you
that'll be easier if you send me the name of it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you. Bye.
Cool. See ya. Hey, Mark. What's up?
Mister, I just wanted to say that they kicked me out.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, see you next week, mister.
All right, see you. Okay.